Okay, let's see. Okay, awesome. All right, I'm gonna start the recording and do just a brief intro. So thank you to everyone in attendance for this e-commerce spotlight event. My name is Uche Anidi. I'm an account manager here at 2U/edX, working in our career engagement network. And I am here with a few panelists to talk about the e-commerce business and as it relates to our different tech bootcamp disciplines. First, I'm going to give a breakdown of some of the backgrounds of our panelists, and they'll dive deeper into their backgrounds as well. And want to give everyone a general idea of the format of this event. I'm going to be asking a couple of questions to our panelists, collectively and individually, as it pertains to their industry, their work, and making relevant connections to the disciplines that our bootcamp learners and graduates are coming from. So to start, we have Paul Byrne. Paul is the founder and CEO of Razoyo. He's been leading the Razoyo team ever since 2009 in e-commerce as a merchant. After discovering a passion for e-commerce in general, he pivoted his small team to focus on helping other merchants build, maintain, and upgrade their websites in 2011. Since then, Paul's team at Razoyo has assisted companies like Magento, Oro Commerce, and BigCommerce merchants while taking on tasks of creating applications both to connect commerce systems across the internet and to create custom applications in the insurance and travel sectors. We also in attendance today have Elena Leonova. She is a product leader in e-commerce technology, currently is the global SVP of product at Spryker. With a proven track record of over a decade in the industry, Elena's expertise is a cornerstone of Spryker's growth and innovation journey. And we're happy to have her here. And third, we also have Jerry Huang. Jerry is the global COO of iTutor Group, the premier online education platform and the largest English language learning institution in the world. So to each and every one of our panelists, I want to thank you sincerely for attending this event. We have already 55 people in attendance, and that's probably going to grow throughout the hour. But I wanted to kind of just give a general introduction of your backgrounds. But if you wouldn't mind hopping off mic and giving additional backgrounds, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Do you want me to start?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, great. I hate to jump to the front of the line, but I appreciate my other panelists quite a bit. I've learned a lot from both of them over the years I've been in e-commerce. And I would say that one of the things that's a little bit hard to express about kind of where I am right now or where Razoyo is right now is that the e-commerce field is just constantly evolving. And whether it's changes in technology trends, just in business in general, and different players, legislation, we kind of suffer from it all. So I would say that we continue to evolve as a company, and we're now addressing opportunities for merchants in both the AI space, the communication space that have opened up lately, and also sort of expanding upon the capabilities of the SaaS platforms that we work on.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Elena, anything to add?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Super excited to be here to share with you some of the learnings, the knowledge, the details of actually what it means to actually work for a technology space, also for work for technology companies, but not necessarily always in just kind of pure development roles. So I'm happy to share that with you. But ultimately, the digital commerce space, to what Paul said, is really dynamic, changes all the time because people do buy online a lot. We all know that because we all do that. But at the same time, it's not just a simple thing as buying online. There are lots of regulations, legislations, cybersecurity concerns that are a huge part of it. And all of that is a really complex industry that this is just experiencing that industry as a shopper, there are lots of things that we do professionally in order to enable that type of experience.
Awesome. Great to know. Great to know. Jerry.
Yeah, maybe a quick intro. Actually, a little bit of outdated information. So I'm
Oh,
Jerry
sorry.
Huang. No, you're fine. You're fine. And actually, it gives a little bit of an arc. So I'm Chief Technology Officer for J. Hilburn. J. Hilburn is a custom men's apparel, so focused on actually things like I'm wearing, or suits, or anything like that, dress shirts. So we've probably have made almost close to 2 million custom garments for about 300,000 clients. But more importantly, we have what we call a stylist community, and we've probably, helped over 11 to 12,000 stylists kind of build their entrepreneurial career. So that's been pretty exciting. As far as technology, I've always been somewhat in the industry side. So, if you look at Paul, he's been on the kind of my counterpart, right? I've been in this industry. I don't work for a quote unquote tech company per se, but I build things and deploy things that are necessary. So I've probably had, I don't know, a dozen or more different e-commerce, and it all different from physical products, right? From physical apparel, for example, to software. So I worked at Rosetta Stone. I was the Senior Vice President of Product and Engineering. So Rosetta Stone, language learning company, wonderful app. So selling apps via e-commerce. And then you were mentioning iTutor Group. So that's a different type. I was actually doing e-commerce, online sales, as well as direct sales for services. So if you wanted to learn English with a tutor, that's what you go through that and you check out through that. So kind of the full spectrum of that. As that's a little bit of my background for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Additionally, to everyone in attendance, we will be taking questions towards the end, or at the very end of the panel discussion. But if there are any hot button questions, I will be monitoring the chat, and we'll make sure to bring any hot button questions to the panelists as they arise. But we will be planning to refrain till the very end to address questions from the crowd. With that, I want to start with one of the first questions for our panelists, and this is for everyone. What is product development? Oh, I'm sorry, that's another question. Let's start with the kind of technical talent you hire. Here at 2U/edX, our boot camps range from coding to project management, product management, cybersecurity, data science, or data analytics. So we wanted to make sure that the discussion was relevant to people from different disciplines, knowing that different companies hire people from different disciplines. So with that in mind, where do developers, data scientists, and cybersecurity professionals fit in your company's teams? Does anyone want to take a crack at that?
I can jump in. I come from industry, so these roles are actually pretty important. So developers are always the core of any technology crew, especially if you're building applications, or even if you're buying off-the-shelf applications like ERPs and whatnot, CRMs, you're still integrating. So you need developers to help connect systems together. So in industry, we always look for that type of role, and that they're quite critical. Whether they're building specific products that I'm selling, like my Rosetta Stone app as an example, or helping me integrate between my suppliers and my customers as another example. And then, especially recently, cybersecurity has always been a layer within the team, right? Whether it's your infrastructure team or your ops, IT ops team, it's always been there. So now, though, there's a deeper focus in cybersecurity, because, to be candid, the hackers are also getting smarter, right? And so so you kind of have to fight fire with fire. And the key with the cybersecurity specialists is now they can go deep. They prioritize, they focus, and they go deep into that space. So that's becoming a bigger and bigger part of our kind of portfolio of team members. And then data science is now hot. So again, I'm in industry, so it's just a little bit tougher for me to get a data scientist because they all want to work for the cool tech companies. So it's a little bit difficult, but I do find the value and importance of that. It's really key right now, especially as we go into AI.
Awesome. And I do want to specify, and thank you, Drake, for pointing this out in the chat. Our full all of our disciplines include, to give you the full gambit of it, are coding / web development, data analytics, UX UI, cybersecurity, product management, tech project management, digital marketing, fintech, and a little focus on Python, Java, and AWS with C#. So Elena, with that, can you speak to, do you guys use any digital marketing of any sort? Is that something that is
Yeah.
of interest, as well as web development and data science?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you a quick overview of how the technology vendors actually work and what kind of roles we typically hire. So I work for a company called Spryker. We're a digital commerce platform. Ultimately, you might know a lot of other examples. For example, Paul mentioned that he comes from Magento, like he works with Magento as a technology provider, ecommerce, Shopify, a lot of those other platforms that some of you may or may not know. But ultimately, those are the big players in the digital commerce space. And across all of those companies, obviously the biggest part of our personnel is what we call R&D, research and development. So we have a lot of engineers, we have people who also do quality assurance, we have product managers who actually guide what the product is going to look like. We also obviously work a lot with UX UI designers, because it's really important to make sure that everything that we are producing for those end users, like merchants who are going to be selling and doing business online, is user-friendly and intuitive. And kind of with all of that actually creates kind of the platform itself. But then you go into a lot of other nuances where the platform, for example, has to be secure. And because we're providing the platform that a lot of people use in a lot of different countries, a lot of different use cases, they also can customize the platform. Cybersecurity is really important, because we need to make sure that the grounds are secure and safe, so then nobody can actually break into. And as Jerry said, I know the hackers are actually definitely getting much smarter. So the job of those cybersecurity engineers, but then technology provider companies, become even more important and more probably complicated. There was also a mention of the digital marketing. So obviously, in order for us to market our product, so we create the platform, and then we sell it to other companies who want to sell online, whether it's the Hilburn, for example, or any other merchants. One of the best ways for us to reach out is to actually build awareness about our platform, the use cases that we support, why somebody would be a great fit to work with us versus somebody else, because each platform, even though we all kind of compete in the digital commerce space, every platform has a nuance and a kind of focus. So ultimately, the digital marketers are the people who help us explain the value of our specific platform to our potential customers, and that actually generates the awareness top of the funnel, and then everybody kind of goes through the funnel in order to either become our customer or maybe not.
And from our standpoint, Razoyo is a digital consultancy, so we do a lot of dev work, and it's kind of interesting. We're always sort of working in teams with other companies. Many of our clients, we may handle the majority of their development needs, but there could be other specialized developers creating, specific user experience, or experts in a particular ERP, and we're kind of the hub, and we bring those together. So we hire developers directly. Most of our employees are developers, but we also, of course, hire project managers whom we work with. And we also develop products. So I do have a product manager, not nearly as senior as Elena, but certainly we have product management built into our system. And then from a digital marketing perspective, that's kind of an interesting one. It was an opportunity for us to bring it in-house. So we have needs kind of like Ellen and Jerry, who hire or work with digital marketers to promote their own brands. And we do have digital marketers, although they are external to us, so we don't hire them directly. but we also work with many, many digital marketing agencies. And I think that's kind of where the bulk of in e-commerce, you'll find digital marketing agencies that are specific to e-commerce or digital commerce. And those folks we work a lot with. So like if that's the kind of the area that you're interested in, then you might want to kind of look at some of those agencies. And there are tons of them, and a lot of the small ones are really the best ones to work at, to be honest. In terms of the other disciplines, so data scientists, we don't have any dedicated data scientists internally. We do access some from time to time on a contract basis, depending on a particular project need. Especially now that we're working in AI, sometimes if somebody has to have a tuned model, we'll work with data scientists on that. And then we also work with a lot of I guess external product managers when we're interfacing with products that they have built and bringing those into an e-commerce experience for a client. So generally, we hire mostly developers, project managers directly, but we work with all those disciplines. So it's kind of interesting to see sort of how that's evolving around us.
Awesome. Totally makes sense. I appreciate that. And then additional context for the crowd, because I see a question regarding hiring. I believe there is a Spryker e-marketing role that I did put on our CN or link to on our CN job website. So those in attendance interested in that can apply directly via that post.
I got
Paul,
one too. I got
Oh,
one.
you do?
I got a senior product manager of AI and machine learning. Now, this is a pretty important position for us. So you can check on LinkedIn under Jay Hilburn and take a look, guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'd love to share that. I'll definitely be in contact to see if we can share that or promote that to our job as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate 2U has been helping us find candidates for a developer intern position, and we've had an amazing response from that. We're actually going, if you want to apply to that, do it today, because we're probably going to have to shut down applications tomorrow because we simply have so many to go through. The response was so more enthusiastic than I anticipated, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely a good problem to have. That internship that Paul's describing has been on our CN or our job board for a couple of weeks now, and put your application in, put your resume in sooner than later, because as Paul mentioned, a lot of people have already throw their hat in the ring, and it's hard to keep up with all the demand. But still appreciate the
and even if you're not interested, there is a coding challenge, and you get access to the coding challenge, which you may be interested in sort of seeing what we're looking for. So even if you're not interested in the position.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. So hopefully everyone takes heed to that and puts their hat in the ring for a role at Razoyo, Spryker, or Jay Hilburn. Link to position here. Okay, maybe at the end, I just want to make sure we can pivot to the next question. I'm the only one manning the chat, so I can't do too many things at once. But I still want to encourage people to check the job board on the Career Engagement Network website, and then also look out for updates from there. But let's pivot to the next question for our panelists. Next question is for Elena. What is product development? What advice would you give a bootcamp graduate who wants to pursue a role in product development?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So you obviously already have a bootcamp for the coding or full stack web development. But if you kind of look at the term product development, in most of the cases, it actually means that you're going to be developing a software that is going to be offered to customers as a product. It can be like a mobile application, it can be a web application, it can be kind of ERP or kind of specific industry end-to-end niche solutions. And kind of it all depends on obviously like the language of kind of that application, or maybe kind of the microservices approaches where kind of like you actually have a lot of freedom depending on which team that you're working on. But I typically differentiate a lot about like when it comes to development, product development versus actually kind of providing development services or customizations, integrations. Because when you do like the core product development, for example, in our case, when we develop like digital commerce platforms that are being offered to like hundreds and thousands of customers at the same time, your level of not necessarily knowledge, but like your level of thinking that needs to go into like making every single decision there has to be much higher, because ultimately you're building to a lot of the cases to the unknown. You're also building for lots of customers at scale. You also don't really have a specific use case that you're actually going to be going after. So you have to build a lot in kind of this abstract, fundamental way. While, for example, and I will like let Paul speak to it, in most of the cases, kind of when you work for the agency, you actually work with a specific customer, and that becomes more narrow. And also, like, with that actually comes a lot of clarity, because you understand specifically which use case you're solving. So both works have like pros and cons, kind of most, like a lot of people have a preference, kind of what they actually would like to do. And also, like, I actually, to be honest, see a lot of people migrate or kind of change jobs from one way to another. But like, for example, for the digital commerce platforms like ours at Spryker or any other of our competitors, you're going to be, as a developer, solving those fundamental problems and kind of building a lot of the unknown into some hypothetical use cases that might happen. Kind of there was a second part of this question of like, what would be my recommendation for somebody who is just finishing the bootcamp? So I would just say for a lot of kind of platforms, since we're talking about digital commerce, there's always a lot element of open source or open APIs that you can actually find available. So I would recommend you to kind of look at how can you actually build something around that whole ecosystem that is available for the digital commerce platforms, because there's always going to be, for example, if you take Spryker or Magento or BigCommerce, and if you're not familiar, definitely Google kind of those companies. But most of the time you will find their development portal, you will find their APIs, you will find a lot of guidance on how to build sample apps. Those sample apps might be really simple, it might be complicated. So you will actually have a lot of like trial and error, and you would also actually have a way to start with something and kind of like build on top of the platform. From my point of view, I think that actually gives a really invaluable experience for anybody who wants to try to build something applicable right away.
Awesome. That's fantastic feedback, and I think really helpful in guiding people in the product development bootcamp. Next question is for Jerry. What are the primary responsibilities of a developer in your company? Would you say they spend more time writing code or working with external developers?
That's a good question. So for us, the developer has a pretty critical role. So I have various teams doing various things. So again, it depends on a little bit of which team that they belong in. And also it depends on the level, right? So as you guys are out there exploring your careers, there's different responsibilities as you go from a junior engineer to mid-level to senior to principal, for example, right? And so, and then the amount of code, or not amount of code, but the time spent in coding, it changes across that spectrum and also across the teams that you work in. But I think in general, just like general guideline, if and when you are in an industry, meaning you're not like, per se, at Razoyo or Spryker, for example, then you're probably spending a good amount of time learning about the industry that you're in. So if you worked at Rosetta Stone as an engineer for me, you're going to learn about language learning, whether you are, from that industry or not, right? I think Spryker too, you're probably learning about e-commerce as well, right? So, but here it's definitely an industry. Like if you're working for me at J. Hilburn, you're going to know, one, you're going to look good. If you're a man, you're going to look good wearing our clothes. That's one. But two, you're going to start to understand, oh my gosh, what is all the different lapels of a suit? How many collar options are there, right? Because you're going to have to build that for your users, your user base. So you're definitely going to spend a lot more learning about the industry. So that way, when you build things, you're really understanding what you're building for and towards. So that's kind of the kind of responsibilities of, if you will. If you're entry level, you're going to be a lot more heads down in the code, right? Because you're probably likely getting specs from your product owner, your product manager, from a BA, business analyst, for example. And actually, especially in industry, you start to kind of blur the lines of those roles. So a lot of times you go higher up as a senior developer, senior engineer, you're starting to play a little bit of the PO role. You're definitely going to play probably Scrum Master. You're probably spending time looking at DevOps. So you're going to start to kind of go left and right even within the role itself, because you're really focused as a team. And you might have external parties or anything like that. So you kind of work together and be a little bit of a coordinator as well. So hopefully it helps. Gives some sense.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely does. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Next question is for Paul. What makes the consultancy/agency environment unique for developers?
In my experience in the agency side, so and it kind of divides out. There are small agencies and large agencies. So Elena indicated that, well, it may depend on the client you work on. And in large agencies, that's definitely true. You have these long-term relationships with single clients, and you get very kind of focused and specialized, not only in that client, but in sort of the technology ecosystem that side. While we do have folks who have long-term relationships with a single client, most of our developers prefer a role where they're dealing with multiple clients and multiple platforms. And so you have to have like this really I don't know how to, burning sense of curiosity about things that you know nothing about, and things that the organization itself, it may be new to us, just because it evolves so quickly. So you have to be able to kind of take your knowledge, your base knowledge of development in the e-commerce world, which is going to include things like, how do payment systems work, and what are ERPs, and what are some of the business documents involved in that, and how do you communicate with APIs to do everything from shipping to fraud detection to tax, etc. And so you're gonna end up kind of learning a lot of new things, and you develop this sort of odd expertise in kind of the core technologies that we work in. But it's also you've seen so many different cases that you can easily pick up something new after you've been with us for a few years. You can kind of pick up something new, and how to start, how to self-start, how to learn this, whom to talk to within our organization. And so like it's a relatively kind of frenetic learning pace. And I would say that, on top of just learning to be a good developer, solid DevOps, write your tests, do all the wonderful things that professional developers do, you also kind of have to have this flexibility of mind to just like want to learn and absorb new technologies, new platforms, new partners all the time. And so I think that kind of differentiates maybe from an agency perspective.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I'm starting to see a theme in a way between your response and Jerry's response, and even Elena's, as far as key things being flexibility, adaptability, and curiosity within your roles, or the opportunities that roles may provide for junior level developers coming from our boot camps. So let's pivot to the next question, as we're halfway through our time for now. Next question, I guess, is for everyone. What challenges do technical candidates face in your companies or past company environments? So what are some of the, I guess, like challenges that people fresh out of a boot camp have all the technical skills, have their portfolio projects, they know, the most cutting edge techniques for their technology, but this it's never just what it's how you implement it as well, and the personal skills as well. So curious to get your input on what each of you feel are the challenges that technical candidates face at your company environment once they're hired.
Do you mind? Oh, go ahead, Elena.
Yeah, I'll let Elena go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I like when I think about the challenges that the technical candidates face, it's actually going to be quite similar to what Paul was saying. So ultimately, when you work for technology companies, and I see a lot of the people who are just beginning their careers, they think about like development role as like, I need to be expert in development, which obviously if you're a developer or if you're like a technical expert, you have to have that technology expertise, but this is definitely not the only and the last thing that you actually need to know. Because it's what also like Jerry was saying, like you always work in the context of a specific industry, and your technical decisions and your technical most of the decisions are going to be highly impacted by how much and how well do you actually understand the industry and the problem that you're solving. And then I see a lot of the candidates or a lot of the employees who quite quickly excel in their careers are the ones who bring the technical knowledge and continue developing in that kind of like from the technical expertise, but also in parallel, they build their industry knowledge. So for example, like if you work for digital commerce, you need to understand all of those different systems and what they do, not just rely on like, I actually know how to write a JavaScript code or PHP code or whatever. And that is something that I feel like most of the time people don't understand quickly enough. And then the work for them becomes quite challenging because you are expected to operate with a level of uncertainty. And you cannot make decisions if you don't understand the industry. So that will be something that I would really want you to take away. And it's not even necessarily just applicable to the developer role, like it would be applicable to even digital marketing roles. Like if you want to market a product, you also have to understand the industry, the problems, but in that case also the technology a little bit. So then kind of it's always 360 cross-functional view, but maybe with a different level of involvement in different parts of the business.
Maybe I'll extend on that, one on the industry knowledge and what's the business and how that works and all the inner operations. But also the realization is that at the end of the day, you're likely helping a person on the other side, right? So if you're building e-commerce system, you're likely helping a business owner or a actual digital marketer trying to do conversion funnels and all that fun stuff. So really spending the time and effort to kind of stand in their shoes, because they're somewhat beholden to you because they don't understand necessarily the tech, the details of the tech, for example. And so they're really dependent on you. And so they're nervous, right? And they're anxious, and they just want to make sure they do a good, run a good business. And so being able to understand that, empathize with that, and then working with them. And then on the sites, it's not just being a ticket taker, right? Hey, give me a ticket and I write some code. Also being an advisor and a confidant and a consultant, because they don't know everything. They don't know what they don't know, right? And a lot of times your insight, because you're either in the database or you know exactly how the code works, or you know how things should work because you've seen it in other places, that becomes very valuable. So really that human to human kind of connection is quite important.
Yeah, I would add to that. I agree vehemently with what the other panelists have said, but I would kind of add to that. There's something that happened to me recently. I got in a bit of I don't want to say a tiff disagreement on Twitter. I don't know. Those things devolve pretty quickly into acrimony, but in this case, it did not. It was an interesting debate, and there was a meme where there was this developer who's standing at kind of a crossroads. I think it's a meme you've probably, all seen. And in one, on one side, the path led to sort of I can't remember the wording that they used, but the know-it-all bully, the developer that you go up to and you ask the question and they just treat you like an idiot, right? Because they think they know everything. And then the other path was to like imposter syndrome, where you feel like you know nothing, right? And I think we're unfortunately, I think in my personal experience, I've been guilty of both. But I guess rather than seeing it as a divergence, I kind of see it as a journey when a new developer comes in and, man, they're really smart, and we hire only really smart people. So you come in, we just assume you're brilliant. And then somebody, they kind of go through this phase where they come from either school or their first job or, their boot camp, and they have this thought that, boy, I've learned a lot, I have a lot of knowledge, everything. And so they start treating people kind of, as the know-it-all bully. And then it doesn't take very long. Literally, I've seen people evolve over this in, maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months, where they start to realize that there's a lot of stuff they don't know. In fact, they really don't know much at all. And so they kind of, evolve into this imposter syndrome. And it's kind of like at the far edge of the imposter syndrome is where you actually get your confidence and you become a really good team player. And you realize that everybody around you has strengths, even people that you are not experts, or maybe they're not the top of their field, your client, whatever. But you realize that they all have something, like Elena was mentioning, and Jerry, I think, said the same thing. Like, they all have something to add to the equation. And when you're able to kind of leverage the strengths of the people around you as a developer, that's when you really start to perform. That's when you start doing really interesting stuff, in my opinion.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that, for each of you, for that very cogent response. Next question, and I want to be cognizant of time, and I see that we got a couple of questions as well. But I guess for the panelists, I would say for Elena, what would you say is the, I guess, like, ideal background you're looking for when it comes to product managers, and how much technical knowledge versus, project management is required? And you kind of touched on this earlier, as far as, there's a mix of like technical skills and interpersonal skills that people need. I guess, could you kind of delve more into like what that
Yeah.
balance looks like, on like a recruiter perspective?
Yes, absolutely. So the easiest way to think about product management is that your main responsibility is to build products that customers love. So ultimately, like, of everything that is going to be happening, your main goal is, as a product manager, to always guide the team, the company, to build something that customers love, and then eventually, if this is a commercial product, that they will also buy. And kind of with that, like, then going back from it, so what kind of skills you need to have. So first, you need to, as Jerry was saying, you need to understand the customers. If you have no idea what they want, or you actually prioritize your ideas ahead of everything that the customers want, you're going to fail. So ultimately, it's all about knowing that you're going to helping customers. It's all about actually trying to be in their shoes and understand deeply what kind of needs they have. And that is something that a lot of the questions are, like, during the interview, are centered around. Like, lots of questions are actually asked, not in a direct way, but mostly kind of to understand whether you're going to be trying to understand the needs of the customer, or you're going to go with your own idea because you think that idea is brilliant. The other part is, obviously, you're going to be working, if you're building a software, you're going to be working with technical people, developers. So you need to be able to explain kind of how that need is going to be transformed into some kind of software that is going to be kind of solving that need for the customer. So there, kind of, you don't need to be a developer necessarily, but you need to be able to kind of to be technical, like tech savvy, to be technical enough to understand, like, here, for example, we can integrate here, we, for example, can automate that type of process, or maybe kind of come up with some really cool automation or something like that. So you don't necessarily have to be a developer, but if you're building a software, you have to be tech savvy in order to know what kind of solutions you're actually looking for. Kind of, and the third part is always for me about the business acumen. Not necessarily you have to be kind of the financial expert, but if you're working for a company where you're building a commercial software, but mostly if you're like working in vendors, kind of where the software is being sold, not a service, you have to understand the basic, like, unit economics and kind of what are the margins and stuff like that, because ultimately that product cannot cost like a spaceship when you try to sell it for the price of, like, I don't know, Toyota or something like that. So all of that is really important, because ultimately it's about building the products that customers love, but in a commercial, like, in a way that actually makes it viable for the business to run and to operate.
Makes a lot of sense. Appreciate that. To expand that to the rest of the panel, a lot of the people in our audience are going to be new to the various industries that they're trying to get into. You know, essentially entry level, potentially mid level, depending on their professional backgrounds. So, and I already gave you the the list of our different disciplines, but for all the panelists in general, just curious to get your take on does your respective company hire new developers, data scientists, project managers, cybersecurity specialists, etc.? And if not, what is the profile you're looking for? So like what is the, archetype of a new hire at your respective companies?
I can jump in real quick. Um, Depending on the size, so I've been at different size companies with different kind of profiles. Again, depending on the size, so J. Hilburn itself is a smaller organization, so we usually don't have the kind of entry level because I just don't have enough spots to kind of round that out. But I've worked at larger companies where, in fact, I want that because I want to also build the future generation of engineers and developers and data scientists, et cetera, all of those roles, right? So I know that's where a lot of opportunity can be found for sure. So for us, it's that, and so in a smaller organization, we usually look for mid-level engineers, again because obviously I need good coding chops or good product management chops or whatever core skill, but I also need some background on working with customers, working with users, in that type of level. But when we look for entry level, a lot of it is, you know, obviously the skills that you bring, that you have, the more projects you can have done, that always help. While we may say it's entry level, you always want to stand out, right? You always want to stand out because there might be 20 different other folks also vying for that same position, like Paul's intern position, right? So you still want to and need to stand out. So during your period now, or when you're schooling, or when you're exploring, take on projects, do things that are exciting and fun. Look for things you can contribute, whether it's even open source if you're looking at that, and to continue to learn, right? Because then that means that while you may be quote unquote entry level, you're really not that entry level, right?
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other input from our other
So, sorry to don't mean to jump in front of Elena, but I was just going to say I just wanted to kind of emphasize something that Jerry said is when we're looking for entry level folks, if you've been involved in open source projects and you have pull requests, even if you're just doing bug fixes, or something like that, we put a lot of stake in that sort of thing. From our standpoint, like I mentioned, the coding challenge, we care far more about what you think or how you think, and how you approach problems, especially technical problems. If you're a developer or data scientist, and less kind of about how much experience you have. And so we do hire entry level folks, but I would say that our typical entry level person does not perform at an entry level. We within 6 months, you're turning away on some very relevant and important projects. And I haven't, we've only had a few people kind of who came in through our internship program that that dropped, that were offered a job at the end of it and then kind of dropped out from that. Doesn't happen very often. And I would say that, but it's kind of unique. A lot of small companies like ours, we're I don't know, 25, 30 people at this point. It's kind of rare that we hire a lot of people. And we have extremely long tenure in our company because people just tend to stay. They like it. They find it challenging. We try to make it a great place for them to work. And so, so we don't have that many positions come up, but we do occasionally hire entry level folks. And I would say it's sort of like, 1/3, quote unquote beginners, and 2/3 kind of more experienced senior folks at this point. I would also mention that a lot of companies kind of stopped doing internships, during the lockdown era, and they haven't restarted them. And we recently restarted internships, and I'm starting to see more companies do the same. So, keep your eyes open for companies that may not be managing internships today. And maybe, like, if you see a company you want to work for, reach out to them and say, hey, I'll work in an intern capacity. What do you have for me? And if you've kind of shown a fair amount of hustle, and you've contributed to some open source projects, or you have some, maybe you have your own product, right, that you've developed, like something to, that plugs into Slack or something, and responds with dogs, or I don't know, whatever, that people use. We see that as valuable, because then you've actually got like working software out there, and you know what it's like to have to build it well, maintain it, make it performant, comply to platforms, etc.
Awesome. Elena, do you have anything to add, or you good?
There was a lot of said already, but I would say we kind of do the same thing. Like, we obviously look for people who can demonstrate that they know how to think about the problems, and also that they're driven, especially like if you're a developer, but also like a product manager or any other discipline here. Like, even if you haven't had that many official jobs yet, I know to be able to demonstrate where you have been trying to apply kind of your skills, understandably, kind of given that you haven't had like a professional experience in that industry, takes like definitely helps a lot. Because, for example, every time when I hire, I mostly hire for potential, and to understand that I would be able to work together with this person. So the person is going to be, I know, bringing their ideas, but also kind of will be willing to learn together with us. And to me, that is more important than somebody who comes with all of that experience, but only knows how to do one thing, but perfectly. So because the technology industry right now is changing all the time. So the mindset and ability to learn, and ability to actually be a self-starter and demonstrate your abilities to actually, I know, do a lot of things on your own, to me, way more important than the actual like practical experience, especially for the entry-level jobs.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. I have one last question, just given the time that we have before kind of opening it up for questions from the crowd, that is, or from the audience. Do you have any success stories of new developers that have entered your companies respectively, and how they've able to either, leave an imprint on your company? Yeah, more, specifically, like, does your how would you describe like a success story, or an exciting success story of developers that have driven positive change in your respective companies?
I can start if you want. Sorry, Jerry, don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead, Paul.
So I would say that I probably have a lot of those stories, and I could focus in on any one of them. I'll just give you an example of our CTO. Now, he's been with the company for 14 years. When he started with us, he had a degree in economics and did programming on the side. But I think he determined that while he was in college, he really liked programming and software development and e-commerce. He was also very excited about e-commerce, and had created some of his own products, including a system that automated he had his own little drop shipping business on eBay. And he was kind of a really impatient person who did not like to repeat himself. And so he just programmed it out. And that worked for him, and helped get him through college. So we knew we had somebody that we could work with. And today he's our CTO, and a very well respected developer in several disciplines, actually, worldwide. We also have a number of folks that have been with us for quite some time, who didn't have what I would call the same level of ambition and or willingness to do sort of the socialization that's required. I think you'll find this on occasion with developers, and to really lead a team. But they've contributed quite a bit, and have really become sort of experts in either a platform or type of integration that we do, or even on the business side, or where we have a data scientist who has really become our go-to person for ERP integrations. And actually, we have him manage ERP integration projects as the data scientist, because it's so data heavy. So those are some examples on our end.
I have a cool story. I hired a guy, intern. If he ever sees this recording, he'll know exactly who he is. I think he was working at Best Buy at the time, and just looking for a gig, and I hired him as end user computing support. So this would be desktop support, right? And to this day, he now runs our full data center, cybersecurity. He obviously takes care of everything in user computing wise. He is over our entire email system, disaster recovery, so everything. So, and he was very passionate and learned about both the business and the business needs, and was very much user friendly, right? He was very helpful. So much that he found his wife at the company too. So he found his wife, has a kid. I mean, I got to watch this guy build a family. I know his mom. So yeah, it's really cool. So he's really grown in this organization, found a lot of opportunity, and I think we're also very glad that he took advantage of that, and to his advantage. Yeah.
Awesome. Like I also have lots of similar stories. So I started my actually product management role back in Ukraine. That's kind of where we had the Ukrainian development office for one of the platforms. And at that time we were launching a new product, and we had to have quickly to test this product for the errors. So we hired a lot of manual QA, so people who didn't necessarily have any background in technology or QAing or anything. And a lot of those people, so they came from completely different experiences. Like some people were selling cell phones, not digital commerce, but literally in the physical kiosks. Some people, we had a guy who also brought his mom, because his mom was already retiring. So his mom was also working with him, and his mom, so she actually excelled in this whole quality assurance that much, so that she actually got an offer from the US company and moved to the US, and then brought his son with him. And she still kind of works in San Francisco, for that company. So I think there are lots of, but I think what's really important here is kind of exactly that curiosity and open-mindedness and willing to learn, because ultimately it doesn't necessarily matter what is your initial experience and background is. Obviously, you need to break into your first job, but then from there, I think you have a lot of chances to succeed if you actually come with the right mindset and take all the opportunities that are there, or create opportunities for yourself. So, I think all of that is obviously possible. I already heard amazing stories of that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I think we've got a lot of great insights from your respective companies and the e-commerce business in total. We're getting close to time, so just want to first off thank you all again, and all those in attendance, and for our panelists, Paul, Elena, and Jerry. I want to thank you again. And I'm going to stop the recording just so that those who were not